The feminist movement focuses on the liberation of women socially, economically, and politically. However, feminists tend to unintentionally ignore the unique plights of women of color, instead focusing on issues particular to white women. Because of this, the civil rights era and beyond became a two-pronged fight for black women, a fight to be heard as African Americans and a fight to be heard as women. Social scientists propagated numerous misconceptions about black family structures. Women tended to head black households twice as often as white women, which deviated from the patriarchal norm of the 1960s. A 1965 study by the U.S. government called The Negro Family, The Case for National Action concluded that working black women led to the emasculation of black men and the regression of African Americans as a whole. The reality, however, was much different. Black women worked degrading jobs such as domestic and laundry work, while black men had difficulty finding any employment and often left their wives out of shame as a result. Therefore, not only did these women have to work long hours for wages far below the national average, but were often chiefly responsible for child rearing and housework upon returning home. Second-wave feminists often had what African-American feminist Maxine Williams termed a middle-class mentality that brushed aside the plight of the economically underprivileged and racial minorities. Middle-class housewives often complained about their role as dependent homemakers and thought that employment would free them. However, black women had always worked out of either necessity or a refusal to be dependent, and rarely saw employment as the key to liberation. Maxine Williams argued that feminists needed to focus on issues such as laws to protect all employees and daycares for working mothers. Most importantly, white women needed to listen to black women speak about their unique issues, instead of talking over them and silencing them during discussions. Toward the end of the second wave, many problems between white feminists and women of color remain. Audre Lorde highlights this in her 1979 speech, "The Master's Tools Will Never Dismantle the Master's House," where she exemplified the fundamental differences between white and black women as a potential strength that many white women ignore. In remaining ignorant to these differences, she argued, women's issues are homogenized, and individual concerns cannot be addressed, which alienates potential feminists from participating in the discussion. This leads to fracturing, and a division in energies is a major weakness in any movement. In other words, women cannot silence one another if they expect men to stop silencing them. Interestingly, Audre Lorde was one of only 2 women of color invited to speak at the conference where she delivered the speech, a testament to the lack of attention paid to non-white feminists in the 1970s. Outside of the feminist movement, black women continued to fight for their voice. In the civil rights arena, strong black women were often denied leadership positions so that men could take them instead. Many black men bought into the matriarchy myth being propagated by their white oppressors and used the civil rights movement as a way to assert their dominance in an intellectual way. However, black women were sometimes happy to allow black men to take on these roles. Since it was so much more difficult for black men to find work, black women realized they needed an outlet. According to black feminist Pamela Newman, their attitude was not their own fault, but the fault of white supremacists who denied them the opportunity to express themselves. Similarly, none of the essays I read outright condemn white women. Black women face dual oppression for their sex and their race, but were much more concerned with having a voice than getting back, so to speak, at their oppressors. Unfortunately, in third-wave feminism, black women are still struggling to have a voice, just like all women of color are struggling to have a voice.